260 is getting sold 250, and the purchaser is requested.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Are you Mr. Mims?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Good, good. We get started. I guess the others will join momentarily. We'll get started by doing a review, doing a quick review. Okay, so can you see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Okay, so last class we began looking at structuring with regard to product pricing and collateral security types. We completed product pricing and we started collateral security types, particularly looking at real estate. And I think we ended at looking at the components of the of a real estate appraisal on page 47. Before we get to that, start up on that, let's just go through some things from last class. Okay, so we looked at product pricing, as I said, and the overview was how do banks determine product pricing. And we said that there were different interest rates for different clients and different credit facilities. And this takes us back to TLC and PACT. So, so TLC will be the different credit facilities because you're looking at the product, credit facilities of the product, different clients, that's your customer risk, which is the C and TLC. Okay, and so we say that the variation of risk, is one of the key factors that affects the different interest rates, and that those are related to the nature, the value of the collateral, the dollar value of the transaction, the viability of the business transaction, the sufficiency of cash flows, and any other earnings that can be made, possibly from foreign exchange, commissions, ledger fees, payroll services, etc. Then we also looked at how the product contributes to profits. And we said the banks are in the business of lending money in order to benefit from the net interest income derived from the spread or the difference between interest paid to depositors and interest charged to borrowers. And in years gone by, this was primarily so. Okay. It was normally between the interest paid to depositors and interest charged to borrowers. However, we have, because the interest paid on to depositors is very minimal now, we find that the benchmark is really using your cost of funds, what it costs you to get those funds. And you normally get that from other financial institutions, interbank borrowing, etc. So that is normally pegged from the prime lending, the prime rate, the prime lending rate, I think, which is 4.5 or 4.25. Okay. Other costs, for example, overhead and salaries must be covered. Hence, careful considerations given when pricing loans. The need to remain competitive also impacts pricing. And then we talked a little bit more about those spreads or margins or those differences, relationship between loan and deposit interest rates, the difference between interest rates on deposits versus those on loan products, the difference between the bank's prime interest rate and a loan product interest. And again, that is the third one is the main factor nowadays that banks are looking at when they talk about margins or spreads. So going back to TLC and PACT, we use that as an introduction to take a deeper dive into PACT. So again, before we move on to taking a deeper dive into PACT and showing the relationship between interest rates and the various aspects of PACT, P-A-C-T. We just say what TLC stands for: type of loan risk, liquidity risk, customer risk. And it's that customer risk that we look at when we're considering PACT. Okay, so PACT is the customer or client risk. We looked at this chart and we showed that the differences between consumer loans and mortgage loans when it comes to purpose. Usually the risk is higher for consumer loans, so the interest rate would be higher. Mortgage loans tend to be less risky because of the underlying and security of real estate. So the interest rates tend to go down. And we looked at that relationship for each of age, collateral, and term. We also answered the question why interest rates usually higher than mortgage rates when you compare commercial loans to personal loans and mortgages. And that's because the rates are usually higher than mortgage interest rates. There's a shorter term. There's a greater equity injection required for business or commercial loans. And there's a greater level of monitoring and controlling required. Okay. And of course, he did say the risk is greater for business or commercial loans. And so that is one of the reasons that really pushes up the interest rates and or add-on fees. Then we had an example of how you can calculate your income assessment from a particular client. This is a simple form. Some banks have this or have something similar that they could use more than one facility. So this is just showing a snapshot of one section of the overall spreadsheet. So this is just showing a $2.9 million facility that this company is taking out. But then they may also have overdraft facilities, they may have other facilities. So each one of those will be broken down into your interest rate, your cost of funds rate, your annual net revenue, interest rate, your cost of funds rate, yes, and your annual net revenue. And then of course, if there are any fees associated with it, you can see with each facility, the amount that the fees are. And then of course, each product, the totals that you make off that, less your cost of funding, giving you net revenue. And so again, you'll have something like this for each facility that a borrowing customer may have. Okay, whether that's a loan, overdraft, or whatever it is. Then we did this exercise like that, another exercise like that. Was not in the book, and we worked that out. We came up with our answers. Okay, and then we ended this section talking about usury rate. What is the usury rate? Could you tell me what the usury rate is?
An interest rate greater than the maximum rate that should be charged. A maximum rate is usually around 20% in the Bahamas.
Okay, and so in the Bahamas, it is 20%. Yes, correct. Okay. Then we moved on to the next section on collateral security types. So we began looking at our real estate, our focus on real estate as the collateral security type to focus on. And we said we would look at the role of collateral security, lending values, equity, real estate appraisals. We didn't look at stamp tax and VAT, and we won't look at that again tonight. But if I get my information confirmed, we'll look at it on Thursday, hopefully, because there's some new laws that came out, a new, and I guess amendment you can call it, to the VAT Act that impacts the sale of real estate that came out in July, and it's being unraveled by the financial services industry, including the attorneys. And then, of course, we will look at, we didn't look at it last class, but we will look at risk associated with overbuilding. That will come when we begin to examine, once we looked at the components of the real estate and talk of real estate appraisal and talked about that a little bit. Okay. Then we said that what is the role of loan security? That all forms or types of credit represent risk to the lender. No risk can be entirely avoided, and lenders seek to minimize the impact of inherent risk and to justify their lending decision by obtaining some form of safeguard, that is collateral security. The security taken will act as a secondary or backup source of repayment if the borrower is either unwilling or unable to repay. And then we looked at lending values, lending value ratios, and we said that that lending value ratios were the measurement used by lenders to express how much they are willing to lend against an asset, that is, in this case, a piece of real estate. The lender usually bases its lending decision on the lower of the purchase price, which is the cost, or the value of the property, the current or present value of the property. We looked at LPC and LPV. What is the difference between LPV and LPC?
LPC is relative to the actual cost or what may be attributed to a loan. Meanwhile, LP, I think it's LP or LPV is relatively surrounding the actual value of the asset.
Yes, okay, so LPV, or some people call it loan to value, they can be used interchangeably. So when you see V, it's a loan as a percentage of the value of the property, the current value or market value of the current market value of the property. And LPC or LP is a loan as a percentage of the cost. Okay. Then we did a computation. We showed the formula for calculating the LPC or LPV. So it's the loan amount divided by the asset cost or value multiplied by 100. That will give us the LPC or LPV. There's an example in the book. So we did that. And then we looked at Martin and Sherry rule, and we did the LPV on them. And we said it was about 28%, 27.98 or 28%. Okay. And we also looked at equity. How do you determine equity? And we said that their equity is any dollar value or amount you own in real estate less any loan or other encumbrance outstanding against it. What could be another encumbrance against a mortgage, against real estate, based on our discussion last class.
That would be a court, something affiliated with the court, either a judgment or something relative to bail
Yes,
or real property tax.
yes, or real property tax, yes. Okay, so, okay, very good. Okay, okay. So then we looked at Martin and Sherry rule to do their equity, and we said the current value of their property was $275,000. That's the current encumbrance, which is the mortgage. We weren't told of any other encumbrances. So we take the current loan balance, principal balance from that current value, and it gives just under $200,000 in equity, which is very good equity. Okay. Then we look at the real estate appraisals, which was the last thing we looked at. We began looking at the appraisals. We said there were three appraisal approaches: the sales comparison approach, the cost replacement value approach, and the income capitalization approach, which is also known as the income approach. And we indicated that the appraiser will use an average, or normally would use an average of the three approaches to come up with his or her final appraised value of a particular property. Now, where the property is not in an income producing zone, you will probably be limited to the first, okay, the sales comparison approach and the cost replacement value. Unfortunately, as I said, in the Bahamas, we do not have a register of land sales in the Bahamas, but typically we rely upon the Bahamas Real Estate Association, where many, if not most of the sales are registered. And so just about all of the appraisers are members of the Bahamas Real Estate Association, BREA, and so they have access to that information. And so they will use a sales comparison approach, but it's not without its faults. The one that is best for the Bahamas and was most often used in the Bahamas was the cost replacement value, which is also used by insurance companies when they are valuing valuing a piece of real estate. But again, we have the sales comparison approach, cost replacement value being used quite frequently in the Bahamas. And if it's in a area that is zoned, you'll also have the income capitalization approach being used. Okay. We said the value of each approach with respect to a particular property should be about the same. That is, no major differences, say about no more than 5 or 10%. And then the example was if a sales figure is 225.5, and the cost replacement figure is 235, and the income approach figure is 221,750. These three are fairly close and will result in a final value of just over $127,000 using the straight, simple average of the three approaches, or there's no income approach, then it would have been the average of the two. Sometimes you'll have appraiser putting more value on the sales figure, or in some cases you'll have putting more value on the cost replacement figure. So when you do the average, they may do 100% of the sales figure, or say 70% of the sales figure, 30% of the cost replacement figure to come up with. And they'll have to give their justification as to why they did that. Okay. All right. So that takes us to, well, actually, we went to page 47, and I briefly went through those components. Okay. Okay, so we have three of you with us so far. Have you all copied the real estate appraisal for the full appraisal for the rolls? Hello.
I have so far, sir. I have mine.
Okay. Well, let's okay, so let's take a that appraisal. Let's begin going through that appraisal and keep your finger on page 48 with your tick sheet. Okay. Again, we did not cover the VAT. Okay. So, okay. So we're looking between pages 47 and 40. We're looking between pages 47 and 48. Okay. And rather than taking a space listing what 1 is and 2, 3, and 4, we just put the numbers there. So on page 47, we have 1 is the date the appraisal was conducted and by whom requested. Okay, so let's look for that. Is that in the appraisal? Is number 1 in the appraisal?
Yes, sir. Up front, January 31st, 2016.
Okay, so it's on the cover. Okay, so single family residence located at lot number 34, block 5, Eastwood Estates, prepared by I am the appraiser, blah, 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 dated January the 31st, 2016. And also if you look at page 2, table of contents, is it? No, page 2, sorry. Page 2, part 1, where it says general information. Okay. It says purpose of appraisal to the very top. The undersigned was commissioned by Mr. and Mrs. Martin Rule to inspect and provide an estimate of the fair market value of subject property as of January 31st, 2016. Okay, so it tells you that the undersigned, being the appraisal, who's again noted on the cover page and toward the back, and this is Martin, and it's commissioned by the Rules, and is to provide a fair market value or an estimate of the fair market value of the subject property as at a particular date. Okay, so that's in the appraisal. Again, cover sheet on page 2. Okay, so cover page and page 2 of the appraisal. Okay, so item number 2, the legal description and physical location of real estate being appraised along with a plot plan.
Yes, sir. All that piece, parcel, or lot of land in the Eastern District of the Island of Providence, and being lot number 34, block number 5 of Eastwood subdivision, having the dimensions as shown in the plan on page 4, and comprising a gross area of 8,500 feet.
Okay, so it's telling us the third paragraph down that says legal description. That's where you're reading from on page 2, and it refers to page 4. And so if you look on page 4, you'll see a diagram. Okay, now this diagram that you have is handmade, because like I said before, this is not an actual house. If you enter that site, it is actually a little park, like a green space. Okay, there's no house there. Okay. And so if I use an actual plot plan, it would not show that. So this one had to be drawn by hand. Okay. So that's on. So sorry. So the legal description, physical location, along with plot plan. You have page 2, and again, like I said, page 2 indicates that you have to look at page 4 for the plot plan. Okay, so we look at 3, the physical dimensions of the land, including confirmation boundary stakes are in place wherever practical. The physical dimensions of the land, including confirmation that boundary stakes are in place wherever practical. Is that in the appraisal?
Sir, would that be the actual measurement being the 8,500 feet, as well as the block number and the lot number?
Okay, so what you'll be looking at is page 4, the plot plan, right? If it doesn't, so sometimes it will say in the it'll say in the legal description. If we go back to page 2, okay. If we go back to page 2, it will say all a piece positive lot, blah blah blah, being lot 34.5. What they did is they say how dimensions are shown in the plan on page 4. So rather than saying what the dimensions are, being 80, 5 by 100, and comprising a gross area of 8,500, what they chose to do was just to refer to the plot plan. And so when you go to the plot plan on page 4, the plot plan, the diagram, it shows you that the property is 85 by 100. You see that? To the top of the page where it says block 5?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, so 3, we have that. And what about boundary stakes? The boundary stakes are in place. Is there anything that speaks to the boundary stakes?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Now we go to page 6 of the appraisal, page 6 of the appraisal. Okay. And the paragraph that says cite data. Cite data. And towards the end of the second paragraph that begins, the site is developed in a single-story structure. There we go toward the end. All 4 boundaries are open and no boundary stakes were evident. Okay, so that lets us know that they did not locate any boundary stakes and on this particular property. You see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So so not in the appraisal, no boundary stakes. So we just put a note, no boundary stakes. And our reference will be page 4 and 6. Okay. So we move on to 4, the dimensions, age, and in most cases they will have actual age and an effective age, if applicable. So for example, if a property can be 25 years old, but because it's been well maintained, its effective age may be 15 years, right? So it may be, while it may be older, by virtue of the date in which it was built, it appears to be newer than it actually is, because people have it has been taken care of, it's been well maintained. or something has been done to enhance it. And so you'll find that basically depreciation has pretty much been minimized or eliminated. And so, so they'll say the effective age, okay? And I think we'll see that in this particular case, okay? So, so you wanted the dimensions, the age, the physical condition, the structure or building type, including the roof type, description and usage of the various rooms in the building, and the usage of what the building is used for, whether it's a residence, whether it's an office, or whatever kind of complex it is, if it's a multi-purpose complex or mall. Okay, so where does it mention about the dimensions, age, physical condition of the structure of building?
Existing building, sir.
Sorry?
Would that be in the existing building situated on subject property, a single-story residential building comprising of 1420 square feet. The building is approximately 16 years old and has been well maintained and ongoing improvements being made on an annual basis. As a result, the effective age of the building is 10 years old.
Okay, so there you have it. Okay, so the building is approximately 16 years old and has been well maintained with ongoing improvements made on an annual basis. As a result, the effective age of the building is 10 years old. Okay, and then on the following page 7, that's page 6. So we go to page 7. Okay, page 7 tells us the construction is of concrete blocks of both the interior and exterior walls, and an asphalt shingle roof. The windows are colonial awning type in aluminum frames throughout. The bathrooms, kitchen, and laundry rooms are all tiled. Wood flooring is throughout the remainder of the house. Then it says high rock ceilings are throughout with colonial style crown molding. High-end electrical and plumbing fixtures have been installed throughout. Ventilation is via central air conditioning units. And then it tells you the rooms. Accommodations include 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 1 powder room, living room, dining room, family room, laundry room, and kitchen. Okay, so for number 4, the dimensions, age, etc., you need to look on page 6 and 7. Okay, so pages 6 and 7. Okay, so 5. The description of any other physical improvements to the land, including patios, gazebos, pools, sheds, parking, landscaping, boundary enclosures, etc. Where would you find that information? Again, it'll be page 6 and 7. Okay, so we look at site data just above existing building. Okay. The site is developed in a single-story structure. It is rectangular in shape and flat for the most part, with a slight incline from the road leading up to the building. So you begin to get a picture of the topography. Okay. The dimensions are 85 feet at the front, eastern, and rear boundaries. And this is where it now tells us about the actual footage, and 100 foot on the southern and northern boundaries. All 4 boundaries are open and no boundary stakes were evident. The landscape consists of a well-kept grass lawn with a few shrub-sized trees at the front. entrance to the property is from the southern boundary, which is Eagle's Nest Close, via a curved driveway that leads up to a double car garage and a walkway that leads up to the front entrance of the building. So it's letting us know the landscape is about that there are no walls, no boundary walls, boundary fences. It's open all around. The curved driveway that leads up to a double car garage. So we now know it has a double car garage, and that there's a walkway that leads up to the front entrance of the building. Okay, so that gives us some more information. So again, that's pages 6 and 7. 6, the description of any defects or limiting conditions to any of 3, 4, or above, qualified in monetary terms where necessary. Is that in there anywhere? In the appraisal, to talk about any of the defects on the property. And that would be in your first probably 6, 7 pages. It shouldn't go any further than that. Because from the second part of page 7, you start beginning looking at your valuations. Okay, so there is no defects per se, but you might, someone might say, well, not having the boundary stakes in place could be a defect. Okay, so I put a question mark there, page 6, related to the boundary stakes. Okay, because there are no boundary stakes. Apart from that, we've not been told of any defects of the topography of the land, because it's telling us that it's grassed, it has trees on it, it has a slight grade going up to the house. So there's nothing wrong, no defects in the land itself. And we're not told of any defects in the building. We're not talking about any major structural cracks or any of that. Because it does say the property has been well maintained. So for all intents and purposes, there are no effects to the property, other than, like I said, if you want to be that meticulous and say, well, there's no boundary stakes in place. Okay. What about 7? Pictures of the improvements outlined in 3, 4, and 5 above. So 3, 4, and 5, physical dimensions of land, the building, and any other improvements. Are there pictures?
Yes, sir. There are pictures on page 5.
Page 5. Okay, so you have pictures of the outside and the inside. Okay, and as you can see, in the bottom left, in the first picture, that slight curve, concrete curve. So that's like that looks like the curve probably going to the double car garage and the walkway leading up to the house. Okay, then it shows the next picture. That looks like that's the kitchen area, then the dining room area. Then we have a bedroom, a bathroom, and we have a laundry room. Okay, so we have 8 pictures there on page 5. Information about the neighborhood.
Yes, sir, the neighborhood data.
Okay, so the very top of page 6, is it?
Yes, sir.
Top of page 6 is neighborhood data. Okay, so it says the area under review is located on the northern side of Prince Charles Drive. Okay, approximately 2 miles east of Fox Hill Road and Prince Charles Drive Junction. Is developed in single-family residences, mostly owner-occupied, with a few rented out on long-term basis. This is an upper middle-class area, which is approximately 90% developed. So it means about 10% of it, there's still undeveloped lots. A few vacant lots are scattered throughout the subdivision. Most of the homes were built 30 to 40 years ago, and many of them have been renovated within the past 5 or 10 years. So we're beginning to get an appreciation for this subdivision. So it's mainly owner occupied. A few homes are rented out on a long-term basis, and many of the homes are being well maintained. All the homes are being well maintained, with many of them having been renovated within the last 5 to 10 years. So values of properties range from $235,000. So that's telling us that the lowest value of a property here is $235,000 to $425,000. Do you all recall how much is the current value of the Rose property? What is the current value?
The current values are somewhere between 235,000 to 425,000.
No, I mean the Rose property. What was the appraised value? Remember we look at the current value.
They rounded it off for 280,000.
275, right? Remember we used 275?
I have on page 7, you mean in the appraisal?
Okay. On the mortgage printout, right? On the mortgage printout. Okay. On the mortgage printout, we said what the current value, current collateral security value was. Remember we were doing equity and equity and the LPV?
Yes, sir. That one, I think it was 275,000.
275,000, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And if you take a quick look at page 8, we kind of jump into gun here. And then you see conclusion to the bottom, page 8. This is where that 275,000 came from. Okay. Conclusion. Therefore, it is my opinion that the market value of the subject property as of January 31st, 2016 is $275,000 excluding furniture. Okay. So that's where that $275,000 came from. That was entered by the bank on the mortgage statement. Okay, so their property is worth 275. The range is between 235, going back to page 6, between 235 and 425. That puts them somewhere in the middle, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it means that their property is not one of the more expensive ones, because you have some of as high as 425. They are 275, so they're like 40,000 more than the lowest valued property in that area. The lowest valued property in that area, developed property in that area, is $235,000, and the Rolls property is 275. The highest property valued in that area or that subdivision is 425. Okay. Why do you think it is important to put the value of property ranges in an appraisal, or for the bank to be aware of what the range of property values are in a particular area or subdivision.
Could it be that there would always be some comparative aspect to see what a house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath in this particular area is traditionally valued at?
Yes. Okay. So you want to see you want to see that primarily. You want to see where your client is in that range. Okay. So if they, so let's say, for example, let's say that if their property was worth, let's say that the Rose property was worth $400,000, and they came to you to borrow $50,000 to do an extension, right? That would then take the value of their property, 400 plus 50 is 450,000, which means now that you in your books have a property that has taken the range up $25,000 over. So now your client has the highest value property there. And you would want to look to see, is it reasonable that a property worth that much can easily be sold? Remember, one of the 4 qualities of good collateral is the ability to get rid of it as easily, right? So if it's overvalued for the area, overpriced for the area, then it's going to the higher or the closer it is to that higher range, the higher end of that range, the more difficult it might be to sell that. Okay, because you may have just one house that is worth $425,000, but most of the houses in there may be in the 300,000 mark. Okay, so it means that the average house there, when you strike an average, the average house, the majority of the houses there may be $300,000, but they're out. Okay, so you don't want to get stuck with a property that you might not be able to sell readily in a subdivision. Okay, and likewise, the client should consider, if I want to move out this area and purchase another house somewhere else, can I get my money back out of it? Okay, am I overbuilding for the area? Is my house overpriced for the area? Okay, so that is one of the key reasons that you would put property value ranges in an appraisal, because you want to see where your client lies in relationship to the other properties. Okay. Okay, so that's page 6. Okay, this is very important. Confirmation as to the legal zoning use for the land. Where is that? What page is that on? Confirmation as to the legal zoning use for the land. Usually that should come very early in the appraisal, usually. So let's go back.
Page 2?
Page 2, yes. Okay.
Single family residential use only.
Only, yes. Okay. So if someone is coming to you and saying they want to buy that property from the rules because they want to put a duplex or a triplex, the zoning will not allow for that. Okay. It's a single family residential use only. Okay. Now some of those are probably using this for Airbnb and that sort of stuff, or some of them are renting them out long term. But again, it's still being used as single family residential use. is not being used, while Airbnb and renting it out can be considered commercial in a broad sense. It isn't like you're opening a store there, or a bar, or a gym, or something like that, some business place. Okay. There are some areas in the province that have open zoning. So, a lot of the older subdivisions or areas, Grandstown, Palmdale, the south side of Wolford, a number of those subdivisions or areas are open zoning, so they could be used for residential or commercial. Okay, so you'll have stores and houses, a mix of stores and houses and other businesses in those areas. Okay, but for this, it's single family residential use only. That's page 2. 10, confirmation of the available utilities or services such as electricity, water storage, septic tank, or waste disposal, or other waste disposal.
Page 2 as well, sir, at the bottom.
Page 2 as well, yes. What you'll find is some of those kinds of things are kind of stated earlier in the appraisal to get them out of the way. Okay, so that you know exactly what you're dealing with. Okay, 11. The appraisal must be supported by reproduction, income, and market data estimates relative to the type and age of the building, desirability of the location, transportation, facilities, etc. Where do you find that information? And after come after page 6 and halfway down page 7, we start to move into our valuations. So after we've gotten all the information on the property, the zoning, the building, blah, blah, blah. You've gotten all that information. Now it's time to value. Okay, so if we start looking from the middle of page 7, it goes on to page 8. So valuation, replacement cost method. So starts off with so the value is assessed on the basis of the replacement cost of the building and site improvement plus the land value. So then it gives you your land value, which is 8,500 square foot, and they attribute $15 per square foot. So it gives you a total value of $127,500 for the land. Site improvements, landscaping, driveway, walkway. They attribute those improvements. They attribute a value of $15,000 to them. So we have the land of $127,500, site improvements of $15,000, and then we get to the building itself. So there's a building, there's a covered porch. Okay, so we add the building and the porch together. Then we take away any depreciation. So there's 20% physical depreciation. So we subtract that. And so the replacement cost method is $280,276, which is rounded to $280,000. So it says, it is my opinion that the market value of the subject property by the replacement cost method as of today's date is $280,000. So the replacement cost method is $280,000. Then it moves on to the income. It comes onto the income method on top of page 8. And it says, well, 9, I should say. So the income method, this considers the potential net income that the property can produce if rented. So approximately, if this building is rented, it can, for Airbnb or outright, well, Airbnbs will attract higher rents than this, but this is a simple rental. So $2,100 per month if they net rent this out on long term, if you don't want to say for an annual yearly lease. Okay. So then you take away estimated expenses, which they say are 20%, which will cover things such as maintenance, insurance, real property tax, and any vacancy loss. So they estimate about $3,600. Okay, so the projected net annual income, you take your 20% estimated expenses from the rent, the monthly rent, or it's expressed annually actually from the annual rent. So out of that 25,200, they will net $21,600. Then they use a capitalization rate of 8%, and these capitalization rates are there's a way that they compute these. We're not going to get into that in this class, but if you do not get a valuation that falls in line with the sales comparison approach and the cost replacement value approach, then something is off with either your capitalization rate or your rent, okay, and possibly your estimated expenses. So you have to double check any one of those three items if it's significantly off. So you have a capitalization rate of 8%. So 21,600 we say is the net projected annual income. Divided by 0.08 or multiplied by 8%. That gives us $270,000. Okay, we see that's about $10,000 less. So that's within that 5-10% margin that we talked about, the comparison between the three appraisal types, right? So cost replacement approach was 280. The income method is 270. Okay. Then if we move down, it says creation of value estimates. There's no sales comparison approach being used in this instance. Okay, so they're just using the income method and the cost replacement value. And so it says, in my opinion, the replacement cost and income methods carry a similar weight in this instance. The market value is determined by using the simple average of the two approaches as follows. So rather than using XY% of replacement cost and XY% of income approach, he says they carry a similar weight, so he's using 100% of each. So 280 plus 270 divided by 2 gives you a simple average of $275,000. And that's how he came with his conclusion that the market value, in his opinion, as of the 31st of January 2016, is $275,000, excluding furniture. Okay, so that you do not include furniture in a real estate appraisal. Okay. So 11 is pages 7 and 8. And then it goes over into page 9. Okay. 12, confirmation that the appraiser has physically visited the subject property or real estate. Where do we find that? In the appraisal.
Page 10, sir.
Page 10.
Certification of the appraisal. Certification of the appraisal.
Okay, yes, so page 10, certification of appraisal. This is to certify that I have personally visited the site and attempted to obtain all relevant information so that all findings, statements, and opinions submitted in this report are correct to the best of my knowledge. Okay, so yes, so he certifies that he has personally, or she, it is he, Mr. IMD appraiser, personally have visited it. There was an appraiser. I remember in my days at a mortgage lender. I was at Finco for a number of years, and there was an appraiser that was quite frequently used, and he used to park his car in front of the buildings that he was appraising, or the lots that he was appraising. And so we used to keep asking him, Mr. So-and-so, why you keep parking your car? You're blocking us, blocking part of the view. He said, well, I want you all to know that when I take that picture and you all see my car, you all know I've been there. So he said, that's evidence that I have personally been there. When he took that picture from me, I've been there myself. So, it was accepted, I guess. His car was obscuring too much of the view, and it was accepted by Finn back in the day, right? Okay, what about where are we now? So 11. Okay, that was page 10, 12, 13. A brief resume of the appraiser. A brief resume of the appraiser.
Page 11, sir.
Page 11, yes. Okay. Declaration of the fair market value. I think we already covered this. So there's the declaration of the fair market value. That was at the bottom of page 8, eh? In my opinion.
Page 8, yes, sir,
Page 8,
$275,000.
yes. Okay. Declaration that the appraiser has no interest in the property, present or contemplated, direct or indirect. Where does he make that declaration? I think we touched on this page earlier. Item 12, I think we touched on it. That is on page 10. You see it? The very last sentence.
Yeah. I further certify that I have no interest in the subject property, nor now or contemplating. Okay.
Okay. So basically you'll find 12 and 15 pretty much in the same area. Because here is where the appraiser is certifying the appraisal, and here's her signature coming on that page. Okay, which is now to item 16, the signature of the appraiser, and we have in bracket their signature, which indicates that the appraiser has signed. So Mr. IMD appraiser has signed. So we put the signature in brackets and in cursive writing to indicate his signature. Okay. So those of you who didn't get to print it, go through it. It'll be worthwhile going through it. There's not going to be any a question like about this looking at an appraisal and saying where it is on the page, whatever it is, but you will have questions stemming from it. So for example, it may ask why is it necessary for the appraiser to state that he or she has no interest in the property, and the reason for that would be you want to make sure that there's no conflict of interest. You want to avoid any conflict of interest issues. Okay, so the answer to that would be in order to avoid conflict of interest issues. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So let's look at page. Sorry.
Mr. Nottage, can you repeat the question for me, please?
Okay.
I didn't hear the beginning.
Yeah, I
of
said
it.
you. Yeah. So I was saying you may have a question. Have a question such as why. Let me just get. Okay. Why is it necessary for the appraiser to declare that he or she has no interest in the property being appraised? Okay, and the answer to that question would be to avoid conflict of interest issues. Okay, you don't want to find out that this is the person's daddy or brother or uncle, and they figures a little bit to make things look good for their nephew or their son or their daddy or whatever it is, mommy or whatever. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So there'll be questions like that, as well as we're going to be looking at a discussion question now. The bottom part of page 48 is a type question that also comes up. What is the risk where a developed property, for example, residential house, is overvalued or overbuilt for a particular subdivision? And we have, first of all, to the bank, lender, and secondly, to the owner. We talked a little bit about this. Moments ago. We were talking about the importance of the value ranges. So anyone want to take a shot at it for the lender? What is the risk where a developed property, that is a residential house, is overvalued for a particular subdivision? Remember the example I gave about the rules. I said, what if their property was valued at $400,000 and they came to borrow $50,000 from you to add an extension? That would take their property value up to $450,000. So 400 plus 50 gives you $450,000. But the highest range, we said the ranges in this subdivision go from 235 to 425. So that would cause their property to be $25,000 higher than the highest valued property in the subdivision. What is the risk to you as a lender?
Okay, I'm gonna take a stab at it. Could it be that if I am a institution and first of all, if the property, because I think what you're saying is that if the property is overvalued, meaning it's not the accurate value or the correct value or the market value of the neighborhood, then that will present a problem because of okay, I gotta come back to that.
Okay, let's assume that everything in the appraisal is accurate. There's nothing wrong with the figures given in the appraisal. Okay, let's assume everything is poker, right? But here you have now a client coming to you. Remember what I said about the property now becoming the higher. If then remember I said if most of the properties are average, okay, we say between 235 and 425. So there could be just one property that's 425. But the average price of those properties is 600,000. So if the majority of the houses are around 300,000, wouldn't it be easier to sell? Remember when I talked about one of the four qualities of good collateral is your ability to be able to divest of it easily.
You said it would be to be easy to divest of it.
Yeah, for the bank to dispose of it, to realize on the security.
So then in this instance, it would be harder to sell
Yes,
because
exactly.
it's sort of, okay.
It's you remember I made a point. I said now the Rolls property is now the highest value. Okay, because you had a range originally at 235, 425. Okay, can house it, and then notice in this appraisal, the appraisal doesn't cover the sales comparison approach. So we're not told about any recent sales. So now if we had sales information and told us that there was a property recently sold for $375,000 or $400,000 or $295 or whatever it is, right? Then we will be able to say, okay, the higher properties are selling. We have no information on the sales comparison approach. Okay, there could have been sales, but we have no information. Okay, so someone in that subdivision has a house valued at $425,000, but it's not our client because our client only $275,000. Okay, so our client is in that middle area. Okay, actually they in the lower area, $40,000 above 235, which is the lower of the range. Okay, so there's one house in that area that is valued at $235,000. Okay, and then the Rolls house is only $40,000 more. Okay, so it appears that the Rolls are modest. While they've done their upgrades and renovations, whatever it is, they have not gone overboard. So they've stayed, pretty much in that middle to lower range. So at a house valued at $275,000, all things being equal, that should be an easy sell. Okay, but now when you start moving closer to the higher range, it may be difficult to sell. Okay, if the bank had to foreclose. Okay, so if the lender has to foreclose, it may be difficult to dispose of the property because it'll be priced too high. Okay, let me just. Yeah, that's our discussion. Yeah. Okay. And you'll get these okay, you'll get the PowerPoint presentation. Okay. That'll have this information. So the bank or the lender, if the lender has to foreclose, it may be difficult to dispose of the property because it will be priced too high. What about the owner? What is the risk to the owner?
Wouldn't they be in a similar position whereas your home could be priced at $450,000, but you may only be able to get, say, $415,000 for it. So
yes.
It being valued too high, they're probably in the same position as the bank itself.
Yes. Okay. So the bank, the lender, and the owner or the borrower would be in a similar position. Okay. Additionally, if the owner is seeking financing with a lender, and they are, going close to that upper area, the bank may say, something, we ain't prepared to take that risk just like that. So what we can do is we require that you make a larger contribution so that our exposure, is not great. Okay, so let's say, for example, this person who owns this $425,000 house wants to sell it. Okay, if the bank normally actually bring 10 or 15 or 20%, the bank may start saying, no, I want you to bring 25%. Okay, because we only want we want to risk any more than 75% of that $425,000. Okay, and you got to know that we ain't lending no more money against that house. So don't expect us any more money. So that'll have to be one of the conditions of the loan. Okay. So so to the owner, he or she should decide to sell. They will in all likelihood not be able to recoup the full value of the cost of the property. This will result in them selling at a lower than value price. And two, if he or she are seeking financing with the lender may require that they inject further collateral security or cash contribution in order to offset the risk. Okay. Let's look at another example. Another question, I should say. Okay, let's look at question 4. Page 52, and review questions, and a chapter review questions. Okay, page 52. Question 4, Philip and Mabel Thompson plan to obtain a mortgage from their bank to build a house that will cost $275,000 upon completion. The appraisal states that the values of houses in the subdivision range from $150,000 to $250,000. What concerns should the lender have with regard to taking the property as collateral security, and how should it deal with the situation? Now, what is the range of properties in the subdivision?
150 to 250.
And what is the cost of this house that they want to build?
275.
So they are $25,000 over the higher end of the range, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what concerns should the lender have with regard to taking this property as collateral security? And how should it deal with this situation if it is looking at giving the loan?
It's relatively the same concerns that we discussed earlier relative to if it was foreclosure. In addition to that, I would probably try to steer them towards another subdivision that where their figure that they're seeking actually falls into.
Yes. But now sometimes some of these subdivisions are new, and again, there may be people who are building much larger. So if you go to the subdivision, and let's say for example, this is a single-story house, but you go through the subdivision and you see 2-story houses under construction. You see 3 of them, one on the same road, and two or three roads over, right? You know they ain't gonna be no $275,000. They can be like $300,000, $400,000. So using the reasonable man's approach and common sense. Remember one of our credit C's? I think the last of our credit C's was common sense. If it wasn't the last, it was one of the last. Using common sense, you may be reason. Okay, I see 3 in this subdivision. 2-story, and the square footage is much more than this. By the time they complete, they could be like 400,000, blah 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 blah. So they will be the high end. Okay. But you're quite right. Okay. The bank would be concerned because Mr. and Mrs. Thompson are planning to overbuild for the area based just on the surface. Okay. If the bank grants the loan and at some point has to foreclose, it may be difficult to dispose of the property because it will be too highly priced. If the bank decides to do the loan, they may require the clients inject further collateral security in order to offset the risk. So they either ask them to put in a larger contribution, or if they have another property, let's say a vacant lot valued at $50,000, $100,000 somewhere else, they may ask them to, they will say, let's hold that as well. Okay, so there are different scenarios that the bank can use to offset it, should they decide to do the loan. Okay, so like I said, in this instance, if the clients have had good credit history, they have good debt service, good total debt service ratios, they have good employment history, everything is solid. Like I said, from the credit history point of view, the character point of view, the capability point of view, we should try to find a way to get around the collateral security side of it. If it looks like this might be a good client who has serviced loans in the past and look like they, by all intents and purposes will service this, just need the opportunity. Okay. And then of course it helps if you strengthen your argument by saying, hey, there's some other houses being built that are bigger than this, that's going to be worth, $50,000 to $75,000 more than this once they're completed, in the same subdivision. So you use as much of your knowledge of the, and one of the things that I used to do, particularly when I worked at Finco, was that particularly if the area that was appraised was in either to or from work, I would try to pass that way, either to or from work, or even if it wasn't, on a weekend drive, whatever it is, drive by and have the area, so I could develop an appreciation for the area, for the property in the subdivision, right? Because when you look at Martin and Sherry Rule, right? Martin and Sherry Rule are in Eastwood. Eastwood is right across the road from where?
Elizabeth Estates?
Elizabeth Estates.
Okay, so some people may say, "Boy, I'm so sure I want to," and this particular property is not in the deep part of Eastwood. It's in, fairly close to the entrance of Eastwood. Okay, so if you probably stood in the middle of the road, you could probably see the entrance to Eastwood and Elizabeth Estates. But then again, if you go through Elizabeth Estates, you'll find that in recent years, people have been doing upgrades. You have 1 or 2 buildings that have been derelict and neglected, but for the most part, the people are keeping pretty decent. And some of them have added on and made some massive structures, taking up 2 lots and that sort of stuff. So, the states ain't as bad as people might want to make it out to be, And then, of course, there are other neighboring subdivisions, excuse me, that add value, okay? Because you have to the to the west of that, you have another, San Susie, Cap Down, when you're going down Winton Meadows. On the opposite side, you have Nassau East, and some of the more, affluent areas, shopping centers, there's a church, there's a, couple of malls. You have now another high-end mall about to be opened, shopping center. The new one, they are coming close to Foxhill. There's Starbucks. We have the sign. Sorry?
The food complex with Bread Lobster, Starbucks.
Yes. So you have more positive things happening in that area, or positive things that exist in the area than negative. And even the one thing negative people may have to say might be Elizabeth Estates. Elizabeth Estates itself, again, like I said, In recent times, people have been improving those properties. And the streets are narrow. The streets are divided by a median for the most part. So there's good spacing in the roads. You got a police station right there, there that they've expanded recently. So since this was done in 2016, the clinic has undergone further expansion. And in fact, I understand that was really supposed to be originally, it was supposed to be a mini hospital. And so it seems as though the government is moving towards making Elizabeth Estates Clinic more of a mini hospital, right? So you have so many positive things and things that cause land values to appreciate happening in the area than negatives. Okay. Okay. So so we've going back to our in-class case study, we've for Martin and Cherry Roll, we've completed the net void statement. We completed the total debt service ratio spreadsheet. Excuse me. We've dealt with LPV, LTV. We'd look at equity. Oh, let's go back to TDSR. I sent there was a news clip from one of the news stations, media, that announced. I didn't have a chance to look at the newspapers, but I'm sure it was in either yesterday or the day's newspaper about the TDSR increasing to 50%. So moving from the central bank consent for the total debt service ratio to be accepted as 50% as opposed to 45%. What are your views on that?
Mr. Norris, hold on, I got to chime in. I saw the email this afternoon relative to the Eyewitness News article. But have they lost their minds? This is how they're planning on dealing with inflation? By giving people access to more debt? That don't make no sense.
Well, the thing about it is that, as I thought about it, I just chuckled to myself because going back 11 years ago, I was a credit risk manager at a commercial bank. And I had my dollar limit, okay, which was a fairly high dollar limit for lending. I had one for mortgages and I had one for consumer debt, okay. But I was limited in that anything over the bank's total debt service ratio of 45%, I had to refer that to my vice president. I couldn't improve that, okay? And so back from 11 years ago, the majority of the applications coming in were around 50%. So to me, they're 10 or more years late. These applications have been coming in to, and the thing about it is the central bank, even back then, or more than 10 years ago, probably like 13, 14 years ago, had said that banks can lend up to 50% as an exception, but that those accounts where they go over 45%, anywhere from 45 to 50, a listing of those must be given to the central bank. Okay, they must be reported to the central bank. Okay, so the central bank knew from long time that many of the applications coming in, the people were between over 45 and 50%, and some of them are higher than 50%. Okay, but that was supposed to be an exception. But as with most things, the exception becomes the norm. And like I said, hardly any applications started coming to my desk that I could approve. Because while I satisfied the dollar value, right? Because it exceeded 45%, I had to give it to the vice president. I had to say, this is above me. I done my assessment. Here's my recommendation, blah, blah, blah. And if the recommendation was to still go ahead with it, he would have to sign off on it to prove it, right? So this isn't anything new. They're only regularizing something that has been going on for over a decade, and that's not going to help. I think Gowan, both from Fidelity, and Mr. Kendrick Brathwaite from Bank of the Bahamas, I think they are recorded as giving responses. And I think Mr. Bow's take on it was that it's not going to mean that people are going to, it's going to open the door for people to borrow, because people are already at that 50%. Okay. I think it has more to do, I think it has more to do with the credit bureau.
Yep, that's what I think.
And they don't want too many people showing that they're too high in debt with the credit bureau. Okay, having that on there that they exceeded the total debt service ratio of 45%. Okay, so you'll have more people when the credit bureau does an assessment, right? When the credit bureau does an assessment, it'll show that there are more people who are comfortably at 50% or below. I think that's probably is driving this.
Because I think there's a tremendous amount of debt out there, especially with the shutdown in regards to COVID. I think that they may be in CRIF, may be seeing things, and things may be more out of control than we think. I think that may be a major part. But this is, I don't know if it's a tool with some of the banks, but like you say, Central Bank gave them permission a while back. They just had to make notation and send those particular names to Central Bank. But this is problems. This is problems with salad dressing all over it. And it's still a problem at the end of the day.
And see, we're raising the bar. I remember when I started my career. Back at Barclays Bank. I wasn't sure how long ago this has been, right? So I started my career back at Barclays Bank. The debt service ratios back then were 28 for housing and 38 total debt service ratio. 28 and 38. Okay? Then they moved to 30 and 40. Then they moved to 32 to 42. Then it moved from that to 35 and 45. And it's been there for a good little while. So now we've moved the bar again to 50% total debt service ratio. Similar to what we did with the number of years. Before, when I started Barclays Bank, it was unheard of getting a consumer loan for longer than 3 years if you want a business. Okay, then the bar was moved to 5 years, then 7, and now we're doing 10. And some banks probably doing longer than 10 for consumer loans, right? There's a time you went $25,000 as a cap for consumer loans. Then they moved to 30, 50, $75,000. The last time I was actively involved in consumer lending, right? $75,000. And it's probably higher. So, and the CDSR, and this is one of the reasons why that CDSR went out the window, because consumer debt service ratio should be no more than 10%. And that should be a low a consumer loan and credit card. Your CDSR should be no more than 10%. But we have people with CDSRs of 50% and more.
It's crazy.
So no wonder, as a people, most of us will not be able to own a house or a lot, or be able to do get financing for business, to get into business, because we don't have any wiggle room. We've used up our total debt servicing on consumer lending. And that is what the credit bureau will reveal.
But all of these small money lenders all over the place, 50%. Oh, God. Oh, that's problems.
So,
Collectors can't play anyway.
So that is why you find that people who are getting into business, the average Bahamian, are now looking for grants and looking to do crowdfunding, raising funds using other people's money and giving them a percentage in the business. Because in and of themselves, they don't have the capacity to go to a financial institution to raise capital. You see, so you have institutions like, at one point in time, I think Island Luck was doing something where they were giving entrepreneurs, I think, $5,000, $15,000, I think up to $25,000. And at one point, you had to go through some entrepreneurial training at College of the Bahamas, it was at the time, now University of the Bahamas. And then at the end of the day, once they satisfied that you with your business plan and you had this entrepreneurial training, then the money was released to you in tranches, stages for you to get into your business, and they had someone working with you. That doesn't seem to be happening anymore with Island Luck. But then you have other organizations giving grants. At one point, I think the government had done for the over the hill development fund. They were giving grants several years ago. The Bahamas Development Bank is giving grants to people. And then, of course, you have, the more popular thing that is happening now, and it's come to the Bahamas, is crowdfunding, right? So there's more and more talk about that. So we are having to look at other sources to fund our businesses, because economies are built on businesses, particularly the small businesses. The small businesses are the engines that drive the economy, right? You go through any corner, any given day, including Sundays, through some of these areas that we consider over the hill kind of areas, and you see the number of businesses that are through there, and some of them are operating, the mom and pop shops, the takeaways, the liquor stores, convenience stores, people under tents selling different things in the front yard or the sidewalk. That is what drives the economy, if they are policed properly, So, but I just thought I would throw it in so we could have a little talk and discussion and prick your thoughts about the increase of the 50%. But again, that's only to basically regularize something that currently exists. Okay. So again, we have here monetary role. We've done the net worth statement, the TDSR spreadsheet, equity and LPV. So let's look at some reasons why we would grant a loan, and let's think in terms of Some of the things we looked at, when we were, the character stuff, the capacity stuff, the collateral stuff, the things we looked at. So, when we looked at capacity, we was looking at payment history, we were looking at job stability, the years to retirement, the net worth. We look at the net worth. Is it substantial? Is it positive or negative? Looking at capacity. Do they have the capacity to absorb this level of debt, to take on more debt, et cetera, et cetera? What is their total debt service ratio? Currently, what is that total debt service ratio, including this loan this proposed loan? The collateral, is collateral of any one or more of those 4 qualities of good collateral. It can be easily take a charge over it. Is it stable in value? What is the condition of it? Stable value, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, bearing in mind those things, particularly with the 3 key components, right? So under comparative will be character, ability, insurance. Under credit C's will be character, capacity, or capability, and collateral, and any of the other items in between. Would you grant this loan to the roles and give 2 reasons? So anyone.
Which one? This is page 10.
Martin and Sherry roll out case study. In-house case, in-class case study. So that's starting on page 101, eh?
Yes, sir. They were seeking an additional $30,000, an additional monthly payment of $340.
Okay, so let's look at character. Okay, what about their job stability and tenure?
They've been on Domino's and Atlantis for a significant amount of time, so we see that there's job stability.
Okay, so they have good job stability and tenure. Okay, the bottom of the write-up, it says, and the assumed retirement age for both is 60 years of age.
Okay, I know that I have 20 years on Martin and 23 respectfully on Sherry, so I still got some time to play with them.
Okay, so they still have some good number of income earning years before a normal retirement. Okay, good.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what about their credit history or payment history?
Okay, their history appears to be suitable. I think it's okay. I think we did discuss that 3 to 14 days. They were 5 times, but people make mistakes and life happens. I'm prepared to work with that.
Right, and then they're current, and then remember on the mortgage, while there may have been some delinquency, it is not really for 16-year period.
Yeah.
That's not bad delinquency for 16-year period. Okay, and then if we look at the bottom section of that, the year to date is showing that they had no delinquency.
Yes, sir.
Right, for the past 12 months, right? So if they've had no delinquency for the past 12 months, we consider them having cured any any
delinquency.
any delinquency history per se, right? So they have good or excellent, I would say excellent credit history, right?
Yes, sir.
What about their net worth?
Say again, sir.
What about the net worth? Was it substantial? Was it nominal? Was it positive? Negative?
It was positive, and there is. I'm trying to find it. They had a net worth of, I'm reading, I think this is the correct one, of 203,758, which is
Yes.
still
Okay.
good.
Right. They had roughly $300,000 in assets,
Mhm.
under $100,000 in liabilities, which gives them a little over $200,000 in net worth, which is a healthy net worth.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, and it's a positive net worth, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Alrighty. So what about okay, so that takes care of character, I think. What could we say about capacity?
Capacity, they got the ability to pay, because looking at their DSR on all of their assets, liabilities as such, they're at 42, let's say 43% currently, with the addition of with the 30,000 facilities being offered to them, $340 monthly. They're sitting at 43% total DSR.
Okay, so if you include the debt that the proposed debt, they had 43%.
43%.
Under our traditional 45%, they only have like a 2% wiggle room. But if you're looking at 50%,
That's if they look at
you're looking
50%.
at a little bit wider wiggle room.
Yeah.
Right. So they have a good ability to put a loan with some room to cover additional, but not much room. Anything else about ability?
Just basically that. I mean, the numbers look well relative compared to that. I mean, to their total debt service ratio. They pretty much look solid. So which gives me that they have an ability to meet all the requirements for us to offer them these facilities.
Okay. So we have a number of items on character, which shows will the customer pay, and so we are seeing that in the past they have paid, so there is a willingness to pay. Can they pay? Capacity or ability. We see that they can pay, and let's look at the last one, collateral or insurance. What happens if for some reason they cannot pay? Something happens. So what is their collateral? Look at the condition of their collateral, the value, the equity, the what do you call it, the LPV, LPC, the LPV, right? What about this collateral? Is it an easy sell?
I think it is because the current mortgage amount is $76,935, and the current value on the property is $275,000. So that gives a lot of wiggle room in regards to equity that is built up in the property that they either one can use to restructure the mortgage, or in the case of a foreclosure, it should be able to satisfy the outstanding amount with the clients being able to get something back as well.
Okay, and then bearing in mind the range of values in the subdivision, this isn't at the higher end, it is toward the middle to lower end, right? Because remember that there's at least one property that is valued at $425,000. So it indicates to me that this is a property that should be able to be disposed of by the bank easily if necessary. Right? Okay, so let's look at those. So again, the first one said both Mr. and Mrs. Rhodes have job stability and tenure. Both still have a good number of income earning years before normal retirement. They have excellent credit history. They have positive and substantial net worth. They have good ability to pay the loan with some room to accommodate additional debt, although not much. The collateral is excellent. The condition of the collateral is good because they've been maintaining it. The value and equity, we stated that is healthy. It's a good value. They have a lot of equity in it. The subdivision is a upper middle class subdivision that looks like it's continuing to improve. Mainly, what you have single family residences in there, and this particular property is quite a ways off from the upper limit of the value of the value range. So the value again, the range is from 235,000 to 495,000, and this property is 275,000. So the collateral is excellent, right? So again, you'll note that 1 to 4 deals with character. Item number 5 deals with ability or capacity, and 6 deals with insurance or collateral. Okay, we're going to come back to that in a moment. Okay, but what I want us to look at is on page 107. Page 107, section C. What concerns would you have regarding the granting of this loan? Okay. Are there any areas of concern with this?
I can let the ladies handle that one.
I think we touched on one when we talked about the TDSR. To give someone a hint. What is the purpose of the money that you want to borrow?
That would be, I think it's 30,000 is for the first year of their child's college education.
Okay, so 30 years of the what? Yeah.
Say again, sir, I didn't get that.
I said they want to borrow 30,000 for which year of the child's college education?
First year.
Last year? The first year.
First year.
Okay, the first year. Okay, so if we assume a normal 4-year program, that means they have 3 more years to go, right?
3 more years of borrowing $30,000. Yeah, they got a lot of equity. They can afford it.
Okay, but what about the TDSR? Remember, they had 43, and the maximum is 45.
But, how would I deal with this?
What question will come to your mind? What question will come to your mind in this scenario?
That eventually I got to cut them off, but I'm still trying to think of a way whereby you can actually facilitate that.
Okay, but wouldn't the question, how will they finance the remaining 3 years come to mind?
Yes.
What do you want to know? What do you want to ask in that question? How will they finance? Okay, we're giving you the 30,000 now. Your daughter going off for this first year. how are you going to finance the remaining 3 years, assuming a 4-year college? Or even if you're going to an art school, you're looking at 2.5, 3 years. So you still have more than 1 year. This isn't her last year, this is her first year.
So if in regards to TDSR, would we then be requiring more collateral from them relative to cash up front to support lowering the amount necessary to borrow?
No, they need $30,000, and then they need at least, if school fees for the next 3 years, they need $30,000 for each year going forward. So wouldn't that be a concern of yours?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Oh, so your concern would be, how will they finance the remaining 3 years? Now, we're not told that in the write-up. Okay, it could be that this young lady got a scholarship, a full scholarship, but the timing of the receipt of the funds may be late, and she have to get off to school. If not, she may lose her place or whatever it is, and so the parents want to get off, and then maybe the scholarship comes in place. We don't know. We're not given that information. Okay, but certainly it is a question that we want to ask. How will they finance the remaining 3 years? Okay, or it could be that they have wealthy grandparents, and the grandparents said, if you all send off to school for the first year and she does well, we'll finance the remaining 2 or 3 years. Remember we talked a bit about financial life cycles, and when the person reaches retirement age, they start, talking about wills and giving out the accumulated wealth and whatnot. So these could be grandparents, and they want to make sure this granddaughter ain't, could go off and just have a party in college. So when she come back and she show her GPA and thing, they can say, oh, she's serious. Okay, we'll hard-earned money for the last 50 years we can give a portion of this. So we don't know. We have not been told. But there's so many, there's so many options. Maybe the school said, if you're here as a foreign student, student aid, we will, and you do well, you maintain a GPA of 3% or 3.5, whatever it is, we'll, give you in-house scholarship. There are several things, So, but again, the key is it will be a concern of ours. We would want that question answered. Okay, how will they finance the remaining 3 years? Okay, now when we are completing the client's, remember we talked about the application. The application has 2 parts: the client's request and the bank's response. And in the client's request, we have stuff like demographics and financial information, etc. Right? And in the demographics, we talk about the people's where they live, where they earn, dependents, postal address, blah, 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 blah. Okay? Now, the reason that, a lot of the stuff that we collect, that data we collect, we must use that data. Okay? So me as a lender, I would go back to that data, and when it says dependents, I would look to see if they listed this daughter as the only dependent, or or whether or not there may be other minor dependents. Okay, so another concern of mine would be: is this an only dependent child? Okay, is there another child who could soon be of college age in the next 2 or 3 years? They too want to go off. Okay, so so that would be a concern of mine. Okay, so the first one is TDSR is close to the maximum 45%. The proposed loan only covers the first year of college. How will they finance the remaining 3 years, assuming a normal 4-year program? And then secondly, is this an only dependent child? Is there another child who may soon be college age and college bound? Again, how will they finance? Okay, so those are some questions that or some areas of concern that you may have, particularly with Martin and Sherry rule. Okay, everything else is fine, but so when it comes down to this, you may say, listen, we can help you finance the first year. It might be, but we can't do anything after that. And that would be the one of the facts of life. Okay, so we can help them in this instance, but going forward, we may not be able to assist. Okay. Any questions on that?
I'm good, sir. But Mr. Nordish, let me ask the question. In a scenario like that, even though they're getting close to 45%, would would them making multiple payments and lowering the actual loan balance, that should assist them in regards to seeking more facilities the next year, right? I mean,
yes, it would assist, but then again, would it be? Can they reduce that by $30,000 within a year?
I mean, I doubt it, right? I guess just looking at it in the perspective of how would you assist a good client who has good collateral, who has a good history, and what would be the best way of doing that? Would be with, I think the best thing probably to be is just to load up, because we're only dealing with 50% of their bonuses. That's the one thing. Maybe special account or something like that relative to offsetting against a particular amount of the college fees and so forth. I just was thinking out loud.
And excellent point. I see again. You look to the financial statement of affairs, the information you've collected. Remember, we asked for things such as face value of any insurance policies.
Yes,
maybe there's sufficient cash surrender values in a policy or two that the parents can cash in without without getting a loan against it, so they can permanently reduce. So let's say they have $30,000 worth of cash values in their life policies collectively. So for the next year, that's how they may want finance it. So it just means that if they have like $200,000 worth of life insurance, it just goes down to by the amount of if they take it out as a permanent reduction, as opposed to taking it out as a loan, the cash surrender values as a loan, take it out as a permanent reduction. So again, if their policy allows that type of thing, right? So say oftentimes people say that well, the bankers collect a lot of information that's useless, but I know they collected it. But then you see, it's incumbent upon us as bankers to use that information. So, for example, if these people had a paint collection or jewelry collection of $120,000, okay, what is more important to you, that painting collection, that jewelry collection, or your child's education? Okay, what are you going to do with that painting collection other than next 10 years it might be worth, instead of $50,000, maybe worth $200,000. So appreciated value. But what is that painting doing for you? Collection doing for you? What is the jewelry doing for you other than making you a target of a robbery? Okay, and making you feel good about yourself. Okay. So, you have 5 cars in the garage. There's only 2 of them. Okay, sell 3 of them. Sell 2 of them. Sell 1 of them. Sell the Benz for $70,000. That's 2+ years right there, right? So, but it's how you also say it, deliver it to the clients. Okay, you can't be flippant and seem to be callous and like you don't care. You know, you ask them to consider, you know, some of these different things. So one of the reasons we get the statement of affairs and we ask some of the questions we ask is that we get a good picture of what is happening with our clients. And sometimes in an interview, that is why sometimes you allow them to the clients to talk a little bit, but still you control the interview. Okay, so they may be telling you, you know, my mother's right there. Thank God, you know, she set, you know, because you know she could kick the bucket any minute now, but she got her, you know, she got her funeral expenses covered. Well, she said we have to worry about her, you know, and other than us taking care of her physically, you know, she have money saved, blah blah. So you get an idea. Okay, so the grandmother has some money. So the grandmother kicks the bucket, and she has money, you know, and you're the one who taking care. You're all the ones taking care of the mommy, and especially if one of them is the only child of the mother, more than likely, unless she could be spiteful and leave it to the Humane Society or to her church, chances are she's going to leave it to you. Okay, to whoever Martin or Sherry wrote in this case, as the case may be, right? So, you know, inheritance, you know, and especially if the mother also has properties, whatever it is, then it means now the income from some of those properties, rather than going to the mom and maintaining her, the income that whose parent it is, whether it's Sherry's or Martin's mother, if they come into inheritance of it, income from it or the sale from it can help them move along. So again, tying in everything that we've covered in this course as much as possible to connect the dots. Why we do this? Why we do that? Okay. During the interview, we ask certain questions. During the interview, we want to control the interview, but we give a little leeway because we can find some nuggets that can help us along the way. Okay. What is that statement of affairs telling us? What is the net worth telling us? Okay. What is it telling us about these people's investment habits? Okay. About their employment habits, looking at their statements. So everything that we ask for tells a story and gives us invaluable information that we could use either immediately or later on down the road. Okay, and so so when loan applications are taken together, put together, it's not that the bank trying to get in all your business and unnecessary stuff, right? We are looking as lenders for ways in which, yes, we want to be able to look for some secondary fallback in case you can't pay, but we're also looking at possible ways in which we can help you without you having to necessarily borrow or increase your earnings so that you could borrow more. You see, so everything is interrelated, and as we put, like I said, we coming toward the end of this. We only have one small section which will end the case study side of it, and we go into some other stuff apart from Martin and Sherry rule, but we've covered basically the A to Z on doing a loan application to get it to the point where a decision to be made to lend or not to lend, right? So having said that, again, with Martin and Sherry rule, we completed the network statement, we completed the total the TDSR spreadsheet, we looked at equity and loan values. We've looked at whether or not we would grant a loan, giving at least 2 reasons, any areas of concern, listing at least one. I think we found 2 areas of concern. Okay, and that's that. Any questions before I put the wrap on Martin Sherry rule, or case studies, I should say?
I'm good, sir.
Okay, so in a typical, remember now when we, remember that bottom in black, which says NB 1 to 4, these are character, 5, these are ability, capacity, and 6, these are insurance or collateral, right? Bear in mind that when you are assessing a loan, and also when you're giving reasons why you should grant a loan, you should have compare in mind or credit in mind. Okay, so how you've assessed it, what is the strengths? And we're saying that there's 3 key areas, or I call them the big 3, and those are character in comparing as well as credit Cs, its ability for comparing, capacity or capability for credit Cs, and then it's insurance for comparing or collateral for credit Cs. Okay, so with case study questions, the question will come up using the 3 key factors, either the comparing method or the credit Cs method for assessing credit loans. Briefly outline reasons for approving or declining the loan application. Okay, so so you'll have a chart, something like this. Okay, so we'll say if you choose to use compari, you'll be answering character, ability, or insurance. If you're using the credit Cs, you'll be using character, capacity, or collateral. Right? So then we looked at if you're doing compari, okay, and listing all the reasons that we had and putting them together. And the character, we can give any one or more of these reasons. Both Mr. and Mrs. Roll have good jobs, stability, and tenure. Both still have a good number of income earning years before normal retirement. They have excellent credit history. They have positive and substantial net worth. Ability, they have good ability to pay loan with some room to accommodate additional debt. Insurance, they have collateral as excellent with regard to its condition, its value, its equity, and the subdivision. Okay, and so those same answers would be for credit Cs. Okay, so character, capacity, collateral. So whether you use this compari or credit Cs, your answers should be the same. Okay, it's just that you're using either character, using either compari or credit Cs. Any questions?
I'm good.
Also,
So, Mr. Nottage,
Yes, sir.
we will have the sheet that has those particular identity on there, collateral, and or
Yes. Yeah, so it'll say using the credit Cs or the comparing method, at least one reason for each or something like that. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So let's take a look again at James and Paula Brown. This time with James and Paula Brown, I've added 2 bits of information to it. So James and Paula Brown, you recall we did their net worth statement and the TDSR spreadsheet earlier. So we have the same questions. Complete the net worth statement, complete the TDSR spreadsheet. What's the current mortgage LPV or LTV ratio? Would you grant a loan, yes or no? Support your answer either using compari or credit Cs. So the 2 sections that have been added are in brown from the original assignment that we looked at. So James and Paula Brown need to borrow $30,000 from this bank in order to add an extension onto their residence value of $210,000. The residence is located in Blue Hill Heights subdivision, And residential properties in this area range in value from $200,000 to well over $500,000. So we've included in this narrative is the range of value of properties. Okay, so the lowest value is 200,000, and the upper range is saying well over 500,000. Okay, I really like appraisals that say that. You should tell me what the upper limit is, but anyway, to well over 500,000 is what is being said in this one. The Browns have a mortgage with Biff's Bank, current value of $68,975, with payments of $1,140 monthly. The original mortgage amount was $120,000. And then it goes on talking about their loan balance and the value of the vehicles. The other information that's been added is that Mr. and Mrs. Brown have never missed a mortgage payment, and all other debts have also received timely payments. So we're being told about their credit history, which speaks to their character. Okay, the 2 credit cards, one at Bank of the Bahamas and one at Commonwealth Bank. They have $1,700 in savings, 12 odd thousand in monthly term deposit. So they have sufficient funds to cover the closing costs out of pocket. James earns $750 weekly, an additional bonus of $6,000. Paul earns $5,200 monthly. Okay, so what we did was we did their net worth statement. Okay, and their property we showed the total cash $14,330, real estate of $210,000.
Hello? So now that you're still there?
Hello.
Yes, sir. I didn't hear you.
Okay, where was the last time you heard me?
Oh, I had just stepped away and I didn't hear you speaking. We were talking about James and Paula's net worth.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so I was saying that their net worth, I just going down the net worth, I'm saying they had cash of 14,000 plus, real estate valued at 210, automobiles total 46. On the other side, on the liabilities, credit cards total outstanding of 850, consumer loan a little over 12,000, mortgage just under 69,000. And there's a total of just over 82,000 in liability versus about 270,000 in assets. Just healthy and positive of just under 190,000. Okay, so they have a pretty decent net worth there. Next, we looked at the, I think we completed the spreadsheet for TDSR, which shows TDS of 30% or less. Okay, so 20.46 or 29.5 or 30.0. So they have good total debt service ratio. So where we completed those two. The only thing for us to do now is to look at their the last three, C, D, and E. Okay, so what is the mortgage LTV ratio? Okay, well there is our formula. Okay, so LTV or LPC is the loan amount divided by the asset cost or value multiplied by 100. That gives us our percentage. Okay, so we know we need the numerator. We normally look at the numerator first. So the numerator is the mortgage balance. Okay, so that's 68,975. We got that from the narrative. So we plug that there as a numerator. Next, we look for the denominator. which is the current value, 210. We get that also from the narrative. So we put that as the denominator. So we have 68,975 divided by 210,000, and that gives us LPV of 33% or slightly less. So 32.85 or 32.9 or 33%. Okay, so the loan as a percentage of the value is 33%, which is again a very good lending percentage. Okay, which means they don't owe a whole lot on their against their property. Okay. Alrighty, and again, looking at it, we've gotten those two figures from the narrative, okay, which are also in the net worth statement, okay, which we say is healthy and positive. Okay, so the question to ask is, would you grant the loan to James and Paula Brown, given what you know about them?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Now when you answer, you have to give justification for your answer, you know that? Okay, so yes, we have someone saying yes, okay. So let's look at some reasons why we would give to them. Okay, give me, let's start looking at character. And we'll be using the, let's use the credit C's. So character, capacity, and collateral. So character, what would you say about the character? Remember what we did for Martin and Sherry rule.
Sir, I don't have that particular document in front of me right now.
Okay, what you want to see? You want to see this information? We're looking for someone to speak to character.
They seem to be in good standing. Financially, they seem to pay their bills or their loans.
Okay, so the character, so Mr. and
Yeah,
Mrs. Brown.
they've never missed
have-
any payments.
Sorry,
So
go ahead.
they've never missed any payments. So that tells that of their character.
Right, okay. So they've never missed any, never missed a mortgage payment. All other debts have also received repayments. So that speaks well of character, okay? So the Browns pay their debts very well. This is evidence of good character, which is essential when considering granting a loan. Okay, good. What about capacity? Let me see if I can find that. Okay, what about capacity?
So from their debt service ratio, they have the resources to pay.
Okay, great stuff. Okay, so so if you look at the TDSR, which includes the proposed loan, is just under 30%. TDSR is just under 30%. So they have the capacity, or if you were doing Capari, the ability to comfortably meet the payments. Okay, so let's put that down. Okay, So under character, we're doing credit Cs. Character, the Browns pay their debts very well. This is evidence of good character, which is essential when considering granting a loan. Capacity, the total debt service ratio, including the proposed loan, is just under 30%. They therefore have the capacity or the ability to comfortably meet the payments. Okay, what about collateral now? Okay, collateral. Let me go back to that's real estate is worth 210,000. We're saying 210. So if you're looking at where they are in the range, it says the residence is located in Blue Hill Heights subdivision with residential properties in the range valued from 200,000 to well 500,000. So in terms of satisfying one of those four qualities of good collateral, it would appear as though this is easy to dispose of because it's not, one of the more expensive ones. If you're looking at the loan as percentage, well, the collateral, yeah. Well, if we look at the equity, I don't have equity here, but we would simply subtract the 68 or 69,000 roughly from 210, and that'll give us the equity. The equity is high. They own a lot of. They still have a large stake in it after the loan is taken out. So, so in terms of, let me go back to that. Okay, so in terms of collateral, what would you say about the collateral? Well, we talked about the property itself, the condition, the value ranges. Equity or whatever it is, LPV, LPC. What would you say about this collateral?
Excuse me, sir, that question is for Camise or anyone?
Anyone.
I would say they have a nice amount of collateral and even equity.
What do you mean by nice? Quantifying nice. This is where the scientific side of the scientific side of assessing credit comes in.
Okay, it's 210 value currently as it stands with an outstanding balance on the loan of 68,975. Let me do the math real quick.
Okay, so you're talking about the equity that they have in it.
Yes, sir. Just
okay,
the
all right.
equity alone.
Okay, great. Okay, and you say I'll wait for you to do your calculations. So while Kendrick is doing his calculations, anything else? Remember, we talked about the subdivision as well. What about the subdivision, the range in dollar values? Anyone else will take a shot?
It would be easy for them to sell if they would need to, considering the values of the properties are between 200,000 and 500,000.
Right.
That
Okay.
would be great on the side.
Great stuff. Okay. So,
Snottage,
go ahead.
going to value, the difference looking at that is a 32.84%. I'll round it up to 33%. Things look remarkably good from just this aspect of the numbers. Also looking at their net worth. It looks good. It looks good. The numbers look good.
Okay. Okay. So, and going back to the equity, because there was 210 210,000, right? Minus the 60, what is that? 68,975. Okay. So they have, did I do something wrong here? 210,000 minus 68,975. Okay. They have a little more than $141,000 in equity. Okay. So when you look at the equity that they have in this, okay, the Browns have very healthy equity in that they only owe 68,000 against the residence, which is currently valued at 210,000. Additionally, it is located where residences are valued in excess of $500,000. And as was also pointed out, the LTV is 33% or just under 33%. Okay, so very good. Okay, in dealing with, and then of course, if you chose to use as credit C's, character, capacity, collateral, you'd use the same answers if you chose compari. You know, it has to be character, ability, and insurance. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. So I will round us up with this chapter. James and Paula Brown, similar to the in-class case study with James and Paula Brown, which is another similar type question. We completed the net worth. We've looked at the TDSR. We looked at equity and LPV. We've answered the question whether or not we would grant a loan. We said yes, we would. And we supported our answer by using both the credit C and the compari methods. And that ends the chapter. Okay, are there any questions?
Mr. Nottage, how long would the exam be?
You are a, well, I'll get to that in a minute. Let me just first say about those reminders. The last teaching class will be next Tuesday. So the 25th, which will be the last class, will be review. I go through review to make sure we are all up to speed for the final exam. So the last class, which is a review class, is the 25th. The exam is the following week, Thursday on the 1st. That will be virtual for those in New Providence. It will not be on site. No, sorry, it'll be on site for those in New Providence and virtual for, I think if you have a student in Abaco, I think it is Abaco. So, so on site for those locally and virtual for non-New Providence students. The exam will be 2 hours. It's normally 2 hours long. However, I ask them to give additional time, 15 minutes, half an hour if necessary. But I find that most people finish the exams within the 2 hours. Okay, and again, the format will be true, false, multiple choice, fill in the blank, and section 4 will be a case study type answer question. Any other questions?
And it's the same time as class, correct?
Yes, it'll be the same time as class. Okay. Just for my record, was there anyone who wasn't here on who was in the class on Thursday past? Everyone was to class on Thursday, Bass? I just need to compare my record with the Zoom records. So everyone was here on Thursday past?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Okay, all right, good. All righty, so if there are no further questions, I'll see you on Thursday. I'll have your homeworks graded by then, return to you. The ones that I was supposed to scan, my apologies, my printer and printer/scan is out of commission. So I may have to go to the Institute to get them to scan them for me. The last set that I had promised to scan and send to you. So I think that is about it. Okay. We'll be looking at chapter 9 on Friday. It'll be Thursday rather. Okay, so read up chapter 9. We'll cover chapter 9. And possibly chapter 11. I think it's 11. Okay. So we'll look at chapters 9 and 11. And I'll wrap it up for Thursday. And then we look at international business. We look at doing one chapter at least in international business on Tuesday next week. Okay. So good night to everyone.